Parsha we read on Shabbos tells a lot about Moshe Rabbeinu. I want to discuss one thing in particular. We already said Moshe Rabbeinu was the Ono of Mikol Adam, the most humble of all the human beings on the face of the earth. When Korach and his clan challenged Moshe Rabbeinu and say that he fabricated the whole concept of kahuna, of there being a special group of people that was closer to Hashem than everybody else. So what does Moshe Rabbeinu do? So he says, if there will be created a new thing, a hole in the ground, a slit in the ground will open, swallow up Korach, his whole family, everything he owns, then I'm for real. And if not, then Hashem didn't send me. Why does Moshe Rabbeinu have to go so far? Moshe Rabbeinu was humble. We already said he was compassionate. Why does he come out like this? This is a very important component in leadership. We said humility was defined as it's the cause and not the person. If it's something personal, Moshe Rabbeinu had no problem. This was doubting his mission. This was claiming that the Torah he was bringing to the Jewish people was really his version, which was jaded by his ambitions. The cause was bringing Torah to Klal Yisrael. If anyone challenged that, no games, no compromise. No, let's go settle it over a cup of tea. So this caring, compassionate Moshe Rabbeinu, humble. When it comes to the mission, no compromise. No folding, no bending. So many causes have been compromised, turned into something totally different. Diluted, polluted. Leadership means that on a personal level, you're soft-bending, giving, caring. But when it comes to the cause, when it comes to the mission, no compromise. No compromise. Here too we have seen it. Jewish leaders over the generations. Selfless. Their homes were open to all the needy of all types. People in need of financial assistance. And people who were psychologically impaired. They care about everybody. did didn't make issues of things. Till it got to what they stood for, till it got to Torah, no compromise there. The Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim, his compassion was legendary. He wrote the whole Sefer Chafetz Chaim about how not to speak negatively about anybody. And then, when those who believe in assimilation, when they tried making headway in his own town in Rabbis, he spoke out, wrote things that were very, very clear. Accused them of destroying Judaism and destroying the Jewish nation. And they publicized that it couldn't be true, because how could it be that the Chafetz Chaim, who never said a negative word about another Jew, how could he write such terrible things about them? So the Chafetz Chaim came out with another public statement in writing. When people are trying to destroy the Jewish nation, it is a mitzvah to make people aware of it with all the superlatives. That is not Lashon Hara. It was so not him. And yet it was so him, it was so the Chafetz Chaim. We saw this with all Gedolei Yisrael, really. There's so many biographies around. I mean, Gedolei Yisrael, they had the privilege of meeting Rav Moshe Feinstein. Him too, in terms of compassion, humility, it was known. He lived in this big apartment house, this big apartment building. His neighbors, they would run to get to the door first, because otherwise he would open the door for them. No, he cared about everybody. Made nothing of himself. Even in halacha, he did what he could. In terms of what I guess they call finding a heter in difficult circumstances. Doing what he could to see to it that people's lives aren't ruined. Yet, when people try tampering with halacha, and so out of character, he would come out so strongly. He didn't raise his voice. That he didn't do. He didn't raise his voice. But he wouldn't budge. Right, this was true of all Gedolei Yisrael over the generations, all of our leaders. They were so human. They were so caring, so understanding of human beings. Patient. But when someone, in any way, tried bending the Torah, taking the laws, taking halacha, and sort of turning it into fluff, they all fought. There's no room for compromise. Sure, we've all heard of Rav Shach. And I guess he was well known for being outspoken. And he spoke with passion. In fact, in one of his letters, he wrote, "All my life I've grown. All my life I've been around great Talmidei Chachamim, and I never heard of the whole concept of compromise when it comes to halacha." He was uncompromising, outspoken, passionate. That was a side of him the world knew. If you got to know him as a human being, he was warm, caring, compassionate. It seems that out there are two kinds of people. There are these tough guys that just never give in. And there's softies that you can walk all over. In Judaism, leadership means on a personal level, you're soft. On a personal level, you make no issues of anything. You're there for everyone unconditionally, willing to give up on anything personal for the sake of others. But when it comes to ideology, when it comes to what you stand for, no room for compromise. No room for compromise. Even if it's not so good for PR. But I think it's very important to understand something, just to make the challenge a little easier. We find in the Torah a directive when it comes to judges, Lo saguru mipnei ish, be afraid of no one. A shofet, a judge, that cannot rule against someone because he's afraid of him, is breaking this rule, Lo saguru mipnei ish, among other things. In fact, the halakha is if he feels that he cannot be open and honest in Beis Din, he is supposed to resign from the case. He has to withdraw himself. Lo sogru mipnei Aish. Not be afraid of anybody. So one very basic human challenge. Human beings have a hard time with rejection. We don't especially like to have enemies. We want people to like us. So we buckle under. We compromise. And that's wrong. But it's so difficult. It's so difficult. So to make it a bit easier. Sure, in the interim, when I say the interim, and maybe for a good part of your lifetime you'll have enemies. And it's inevitable. You can never do anything constructive for the Jewish people without having enemies from within. No such thing. No such thing. If you have no enemies, then what you're doing is obviously meaningless. Never fails. Did you know something? Once people catch on and understand that you're for real, you will earn their respect. I'm not saying that that's the goal, but just in terms of making the challenge easier. Where you feel like you really are fighting the world, and you probably find yourself just hated. Perhaps. But at the end of the day, you'll gain the respect of people who know that you're for real. It's certainly true of great Jewish leaders. They always had critics. They always had critics. But people knew they were for real. You know, we understand that within the world of observant Jews, there have been movements that are extreme. And they were not accepted by mainstream orthodoxy. However, their leaders commanded the respect of everyone because they were for real. It's not always true of the people that took over from them. Because, they just took over for a movement that already existed. But certainly the ones that founded these movements were universally respected, although so much of what they stood for was rejected by mainstream orthodoxy. The Satmarov, Ariel, were a few generations since then. So he was seen as a radical. Nobody didn't respect him. He was for real. Everyone knew he was for real. And he too, as a human being, was caring. I'll give you a more radical one. Rav Amram Bloy, the founder of the Natura Carta. I'm not going to talk about today's Natura Carta. I find it hard to believe if you were alive today who would support so much of what they do and stand for. In his day, he fought tooth and nail, and it was extreme. And he did not have that great a following. As a person, everyone respected him, including the secular leaders of the nation that he was always attacking. They all agreed the man was for real. And by the way, another perfect example. He's an extremist and outspoken. Do you know what he was like as a person? I met people, when I came here, I met people that frequented his house. He had all kinds of Shabbos guests. Cared about them all. When it came to helping others, there was no discrimination. Didn't make a difference where you came from or what you believed in. You're Jewish, he's got to be there for you. I'm not pushing extremism in any way whatsoever. A leader has to be one that understands when it comes to oneself as a human being, everything is negotiable. When it comes to the cause and what you stand for, there's no compromise. The cause has to remain unadulterated. Even at the expense of your PR. What's more important, your PR or your cause? Yeah, but what's with fundraising? What are you fundraising for anyway? For a cause. You're going to compromise on the cause. It's a story about Rav Noach Weinberg that I often tell over. It's the first Rav Noach as a human being. With soul of caring. He always carried around some treats to give to kids. He helped people that double-crossed him. People that tried to destroy his efforts. He helped support them anyway. As a human being, he loved Jews without exception. So this is one story. You know, raising money to bring Aish to where it got to was not easy. It was a particular wealthy Jew somewhere in Switzerland that for a long time Rav Noach was trying to get into. Finally, he found the contact. Actually, someone I knew. And he got him in. Rav Noach traveled to Switzerland. So he meets with the guy and he starts telling him, we're all about fighting assimilation. We're losing it. Intermarriage in North America, at that time it was just about hit 70%. This guy tells him, what's so terrible about intermarriage? I married out. I'm a good Jew. Rav Noach starts screaming at the guy. Traitor! Noach picks himself up, turns around, storms out of his apartment. The guy ran after him. On the way out, he stuffed something into his pocket. Rav Noach didn't even look at it. At some point in Yerushalayim, he was looking for something in his pocket, and he finds what this man slipped into his pocket. It was a check for a major donation. Now, this was a sizable check, a lot more than he really expected to get from the guy. So he got in touch with the one who had made the appointment and said, I don't get it. I screamed at him. I stormed out of the place. He hits me a check for a fortune of money. So he said, yeah, he got in touch with me too. And he said, so many rabbis have come to me and they know I married out. And they never said a word because they came for my money. This man's for real. He's for real. It's more important to be for real than to be popular. Even from a fundraising perspective. It's more important to be real than to be popular. Lo saguru mipnei Aish, be fearless. When it comes to what we stand for, no compromise. When it comes to anything else, ready to give up anything for others. Not the cause, though. Not the cause. This is one of the more difficult things to learn in leadership. To be soft as a person and uncompromising when it comes to the cause. Then you're for real. Then you're a leader.